When Elon Musk and his family decided to visit the Vatican, they had no idea that this trip would bring an entirely different experience, one that would change the way the entire family viewed the world. What seemed like an ordinary day, stepping into St. Peter's Basilica, turned into something unexpected when they coincidentally met Pope Francis. But what happened next was not just a simple encounter, it was an emotional moment full of surprises, where faith and human connection transcended all boundaries. The meeting completely changed Elon Musk's perspective on the importance of faith and human connection, making him rethink the values he had always believed in. So what was it that caused him to change his mind so dramatically? Right now, let's listen to this story. The Vatican was not just a destination for Elon Musk and his family, but a moment that opened up a different world, where tradition met modernity. The whole family stepped out of the sleek black van into the early morning air with a clear sky, the sunlight reflecting off the ancient buildings. Elon, who usually faces challenges at work, was calm today, walking with his wife and children into a journey not about technology or innovation, but a spiritual exploration. Shirvan, who always held the reins for every important decision in the family, led the group with a glint of joy in her eyes. Although she had planned the vacation meticulously, the true purpose of the trip was not just relaxation but to give the children experiences of rich cultures. She had always believed the world was broader than what they could imagine. "We won't just visit. We will feel the mystery with every step we take here," she confidently affirmed. Elon smiled softly. His gaze seemed to look far beyond. "All right. Let's see for myself," he replied, though his tone still carried an unfamiliar note. Arriving at the Vatican Basilica, with its world-renowned landmarks, the family couldn't help but look up at the towering domes and magnificent paintings. Elon couldn't stop admiring the meticulous details, amazed by the skill of the artists of the past who created these masterpieces without the help of today's technology. How could they do this without machines? These paintings must have been the result of a century of creativity, Elon said, his eyes tracing the classical works left by Michelangelo. Shirvan, sensing the admiration in her husband's words, looked at their children who were attentively observing. Strider and Azure, with wide eyes, were absorbed in the miraculous images on the walls, completely captivated by the grandeur of the space around them. "Mom, why is this place so beautiful?" Strider asked, gazing up in awe. Shirvan bent down, gently responding, "This place is a part of history, my dear. Everything here holds long stories." They continued their journey through the building, along the vast pathways, with sounds echoing through the majestic space. The guide, a petite and agile woman, shared every mystical detail of the Vatican, from the artworks to the legends passed down over centuries. Elon, with his ever-curious nature, kept asking questions about how the artists of the past created their works. Did they have modern tools to help create these pieces? The guide's eyes brightened as she responded. Actually, they had to use intricate and creative craftsmanship to make these works. It was the result of faith, patience, and talent. Meanwhile, the children were still immersed in the serene space of the church, their soft footsteps echoing on the marble floors. Azure watched the rays of light streaming through the windows, creating magical streaks of light on the ground. The boy pointed at the changing images, like a child discovering his world. Shirvan smiled, feeling the peace in that space. "Can you see it? Every place has its own unique story." Elon looked at his wife and children, his gaze full of respect. Even though he wasn't easily moved by religious buildings, he admitted that even those who didn't believe in religious values could still feel the grandeur and depth of this place. "This really is an inspiring place," he said, his voice warmer. As they continued the tour, it wasn't just a journey through history or religion but an opportunity for the Musk family to rediscover human values, stories of perseverance, and the strength of faith. things that could transcend the challenges of time. Elon Musk never expected that today's simple tour would lead him to such an unexpected event. As they entered St. Peter's Basilica, the overwhelming beauty of the place made them forget everything around them. However, when the guide suddenly stopped, her eyes glowing with a strange light as she quietly said, "The Pope will be here today." Shirvan couldn't help but feel a jolt run through her body. Elon looked at her with a puzzled expression, wondering if he had heard her correctly. "Pope Francis?" he asked, half surprised, half skeptical. "Yes," the guide confirmed, her eyes shining with respect. "He sometimes has private meetings here. However, it's always kept confidential." Elon hesitated. He wasn't someone who sought out religious encounters. But Shivan's curiosity, along with the sparkle in her eyes, made it impossible for him to refuse. "Then let's go in," Shirvan suggested, her voice soft but persuasive. Mark and Lily, the twins, too young to understand the significance of the moment, eagerly tugged at their mother's hand, seemingly oblivious to the solemn atmosphere surrounding them. They entered a smaller space compared to St. Peter's Basilica, where the soft light from the windows gently illuminated the room, creating a cozy and intimate atmosphere, in stark contrast to the grandeur outside. In the center of the room, Pope Francis was conversing with a small group of people, his simple white robe unadorned, but radiating a profound respect. He stood there, listening and sharing, while the soft sounds of prayers and footsteps echoed from afar. Shirvan, unable to take her eyes off the carved statue behind the Pope, felt a magical connection with the artwork. It was a delicate sculpture, seemingly carrying a part of the soul of the worshippers who had come before. "How wonderful!" Shirvan whispered, her words almost to herself, but enough to catch Elon's attention. Elon looked up, his eyes on the statue, unable to contain his admiration. "So special. I wonder where the creator drew their inspiration from." For Elon, his interest in these creations often transcended religion. He was usually curious about the ideas and effort behind such magnificent works. The guide gently pointed to a row of empty seats and softly said, "If anyone wishes, they can sit down and listen further." Although not particularly interested, Elon decided to sit. They chose a row of seats at the back, with Shirvan holding the youngest child in her arms, while Mark and Lily played around, staying close to their mother. The Pope's voice was warm, each word filled with power as he shared his thoughts on compassion and the strength of unity within the community. His words easily touched the hearts of those listening. Although Elon was only casually listening to the theological concepts, he couldn't help but notice the focus in Shivan's eyes. She sat still, her eyes lighting up with passion for every word the Pope shared. Suddenly, one person from the group stood up, their soft voice echoing in the quiet space, sharing their life story, endless battles with illness, loss, and beautiful moments that changed their lives. A woman, Rachel Adams, with a determined face but not hiding her emotions, shared her story. "When I got sick, I thought I had no chance left. But day by day, I realized that faith and perseverance kept me going. I learned that nothing is impossible if we dare to hope." Shirvan turned to look at Elon, her eyes filled with emotion. She felt the power from these stories, not because they were about divine miracles, but because they were about brave people, souls who never gave up. Elon, though always proud of his rationality, couldn't help but feel stirred by these stories. Part of him felt drawn into a world he had never fully understood before. A world of resilience and belief in good things. He looked at Shirvan, realizing that this tour, though unexpected, was gradually changing him, opening up a new perspective that he had never noticed before. In the quiet space of the Vatican, where soft light filtered through the ancient walls, Elon felt a strange sensation that was hard to describe. He was used to numbers, to algorithms. But here, nothing was dry or logical. Each story was a piece of life. A small yet vibrant part of the collective human journey. The Pope sat there, silent and gentle, his eyes looking at each person, as if each word they spoke was a part of him. He was not in a hurry, not judging, just listening, and when needed, his blessings and words of encouragement rang out like rays of light, soothing the pain of the souls. Every story told was not just a share, but a part of healing. Elon looked around, deeply impressed by the openness and courage of the people there. A young girl stood up, her gaze full of longing, as if every word she spoke carried a long time of torment. She spoke of the days spent in the darkness of depression, of the times when she tried to find peace, only to be swept away. I thought I would never make it. But then, when I decided to help others, I started to find myself again, she said, her voice soft, but behind it, a resilience that few could recognize. Then an older man, with silver hair and a deep voice, shared his story. He spoke about a life that had once been distant from his son, about the years of silence and unspoken words. One day, I got a call from my son. He said he wanted to make peace. We met again, and that meeting changed both of us, he said, his voice choking up. A simple story, but with immense power. Elon looked at Shirvan, curiosity in his eyes. How can they speak like that? He whispered, surprised by their openness. Shirvan turned to him, her gaze understanding. Sometimes, it's easier to share with strangers because they don't carry our past or expectations. Here, they feel safe to be themselves. Her words left Elon silent, feeling a vast difference between his world and this one. He, who had lived in a universe of logic and innovation, couldn't fully understand it. But he felt a connection that was hard to put into words. Mark and Lily, the twin siblings sitting in front, looked toward the Pope and then turned to ask innocent questions. Who is that? Mark asked, pointing to him. Why does everyone want to talk to him? Shirvan smiled and answered calmly, as if accustomed to such questions. He is a spiritual leader. People come to him to share, to receive blessings, and comfort in the hardest moments of their lives. Elon, in that moment, felt these answers touch something within him. Simple, yet full of warmth. When the meeting ended, the Pope stood and read a prayer, his voice echoing like an invitation for peace. Always live with love, and remember that we are never alone, he said, and every word was like a small torch in the darkness. Elon was not easily moved, but at that moment, he felt something deep within him. He looked at the people around him, feeling the strength in each of their stories. Although he couldn't fully understand, he knew that this world was not just about innovation or progress, but about connection, about the pieces of humanity that, sometimes, in his own life, he had forgotten. Suddenly, a soft voice rose from the front. A woman stood up, her eyes red, and her voice choked as she spoke of the greatest loss life had brought her. I lost my daughter. That is a pain that words cannot express, she said. But in her voice, there was still a deep belief. But now, I am pregnant again, and I believe this is a gift from God, so I can start over. Her words were like a beam of light in the dark, a reminder of rebirth, of miracles that sometimes cannot be explained. Elon sat quietly in the room, the dim light from the window casting shadows on his face, as if everything around him was slowly fading. His mind was in turmoil, the pain he had tried to forget for years flooding back, sharp and overwhelming. The loss of his son, Nevada, had been with him like an unhealable wound. Even though nearly 2 decades had passed, he never spoke of it. Not because he had forgotten, but because he didn't know how to face that pain, to move on. He had poured himself into his work, thinking he could change the world. But the truth was, he was also trying to change himself, to soothe the emptiness in his heart. Then, Rachel's story made his heart quiet. It was not an ordinary sharing. It was filled with a kind of strength that he had never felt from anyone. It wasn't sympathy, but something deeper, a belief that not everyone has to fight alone in their pain. She didn't expect sympathy or comfort from anyone. She just wanted to live fully with her own pain. And in that moment, Rachel gave Elon a sense that sometimes, simply acknowledging the sorrow was enough to make it less heavy. That feeling made Elon rethink. All these years, he had lived in a world where everything needed to have a reason, a theory. But facing Rachel, he realized that pain doesn't always need an explanation. It just needs to be seen and shared. Surely, no one in this room, whether Elon or anyone else, could change the past. But they could ease each other's burdens. Sometimes, just a little understanding, a little sharing, is enough to make everything more bearable, Elon thought to himself. Her words echoed, awakening emotions he had tried to bury for so long. A gentle touch on his shoulder made Elon turn. Shervan stood there, her face gentle but determined. Elon, she said, not in a hurry, but with sincerity. It's our turn. Elon nodded, not saying anything more. But his mind couldn't stop thinking about what he had heard. When it was his turn, he stood up and walked silently. Each step seemed longer than usual. The Pope was waiting, but the air in the room was thick with Elon's thoughts. When facing the Pope, Elon didn't feel the distance that he once did. The Pope smiled, his eyes lighting up as if he recognized a real person standing before him. Not a reputation or a shining figure. Just a human being, facing himself and the choices of his life. We all carry untold stories, the Pope spoke, his words gentle but full of depth. Sometimes, sharing is the only way to heal. Elon didn't respond immediately, but deep down, he understood. He didn't need to find an answer right away. The silence in this moment gave him a sense of peace he had never felt. It wasn't about forgiveness or complete healing, but about an acceptance that everything could change, from the grand things to the pains that seemed impossible to erase. Shervan stood beside him, introducing each child to the Pope. The children looked at him with curiosity, but they found reassurance in his presence. The Pope bent down, speaking gently to each child, making the atmosphere warm and close. When the youngest child in Shivan's arms reached out toward him, the Pope gently took the child's hand, as if a gesture full of love and protection. In that moment, Elon realized something he had long forgotten: connection. Not with inventions, not with fame, but the connection between people. In ordinary encounters like this, strangers could become kindred spirits, sharing and supporting each other through pain and joy. When the conversation ended, Elon no longer felt like a hero or someone special. He was just a man, standing in a space full of kindness, empathy, and love. That was the moment he understood that sometimes just being yourself makes everything meaningful. Elon stood in the vast space of the Vatican. A sense of surprise brushed past him when his gaze unintentionally fell on a family sitting in the back row. Everything around him seemed to suddenly slow down, and the light in the church grew dim as his mind focused on them. The father and mother sat close together, dressed in simple yet neat clothes. A sense of peace radiated from them. Unlike the people around, the children, a little boy and a girl, exchanged innocent looks and soft giggles. The boy shook his head, seemingly happy for the simple things in life. The father gently rubbed the boy's head, smiling softly with love. The mother looked at both children, her face filled with joy and contentment. Everything around them, whether it was the hustle and bustle of the tourists or the grand space of the church, seemed to fade. Elon could only look at the family, as if they held a moment of completeness that he couldn't grasp. For Elon, this was not an unfamiliar scene. But this time, it was different. He understood that this family might not be perfect. They might also face difficulties in life, just like everyone else. But in this moment, the love and connection between them seemed to take precedence. It wasn't wealth, fame, or the daily struggles, but something simpler and deeper, the bond of affection between loved ones. In Elon's mind, a question kept echoing: could this be the true essence of life? A release from the invisible burdens? Could faith truly bring freedom to people, temporarily putting aside personal worries to find harmony in the moment? Elon couldn't find an answer to these questions, but the feeling of surprise and confusion still lingered. He couldn't explain it. But one thing was clear: for the first time in a long while, he no longer cared about inventions, technologies, or the issues he had tirelessly pursued. Instead, he was left with the image of that family, and the strange peace they brought. When everything ended, we realized that life is not just about what we own or what we can achieve. Sometimes, happiness is not something we must search for, but something we feel in the simplest moments, when we feel connected, loved, and at peace. This world, though full of challenges and difficulties, still holds precious moments, where we can let go of all worries, and only human connection and empathy remain. We may not be able to change everything, but at least, every day, every moment, we can find peace within our own hearts and share it with those around us. Remember that, in this fast-paced world, sometimes the simplest things are the most precious gifts. Life is not a race, but a journey to find and cherish true values. So, don't forget to take time to feel, to love, and to live fully in every moment. Please note that this story is a work of fiction, created based on inspiration and creative ideas, and does not reflect actual events. However, the profound messages about growth and overcoming challenges are lessons we can learn from and apply in real life. We hope this story has touched your heart and brought deep reflections. If you find these messages meaningful, feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Thank you for joining us on this journey. See you in the next videos.